Hey everyone, welcome to Taking the Pulse, a healthcare and life sciences video podcast. I am Heather Hoops Matthews, here today with Lauren DeMoss, a Maynard Nexsen healthcare and life sciences attorney. Lauren, good to be with you.
Thank you so much, Heather. It's great to be here.
And we are coming to you live from SCbio. The annual conference is being held this year in Charleston, South Carolina, and it's one of the premier life sciences events in the Southeast, bringing together cutting-edge presentations and industry leaders. And we're delighted to have one of them with us today. Joining us is John Balchunas. He is the Workforce Director for the National Institute for Innovation in Manufacturing of Biopharmaceuticals, known as NIIMBL. That makes it a little bit easier. John, in his role, is responsible for guiding strategy around workforce and talent for the federally funded public-private partnership focused on transforming biopharmaceutical manufacturing. John, thank you for taking time away from the conference to join us.
Absolutely. Happy to be here.
Thank you. Talk about you. Now, you're speaking on a panel, is that correct? Regarding strategies for, as it says, future-proofing the talent pipeline in the life sciences industry. I know everybody wants that, right? Secret sauce to make it happen. Tell us a little bit about what you're going to share today, and also about your role at NIIMBL.
Yeah, well, probably easiest to start with my role at NIIMBL and NIIMBL as a whole. So NIIMBL, as you mentioned, is a public-private partnership. We are funded by the U.S. government through NIST and the U.S. Department of Commerce. We are one of a collection of about 17 different institutes focused on different sectors of advanced manufacturing. Our focus is biopharmaceutical manufacturing. And really, in our case, it's all around U.S. competitiveness and making sure that the U.S. is a competitive place to do biopharmaceutical manufacturing. In the context of the work that we do, it's really around technology innovation in manufacturing. And so we are not looking to get new drugs into the marketplace. We are really focused on the manufacturing technologies that are used in those plants and helping get new and innovative technologies into the manufacturing plants that are producing the biopharmaceuticals. My focus and my role is on workforce and talent development, because nobody's going to be producing these next generation drugs if the workforce isn't in place. And so I work very closely with a whole consortium of community colleges, universities, nonprofits, and the companies to make sure that everybody's talking the same language around what's needed in terms of skills and jobs.
You mentioned before we got started that you live in North Carolina. Are you focused just in that RTP area, or are you nationwide?
No, we are absolutely national, and we are headquartered at the University of Delaware. I locally am based in North Carolina, and that's where I live and always have. But we have members really wherever the industry is. And so we have members in, all up and down the East Coast, from Boston down into North Carolina, South Carolina, Florida, but all the way nationally as well.
Yes.
Well, I know we're talking about your role at NIIMBL today, but it sounds like you've had multiple workforce development roles. When you think about that kind of your career span combined, what are some of the best practices you would say when it comes to workforce development?
So again, most of my focus is on really that interstitial space between industry, academia, and government. And in terms of best practices, when I see it done well, industry has to be at the table. Industry has to be at the table in terms of sharing what's needed, and they have to have skin in the game in terms of actually caring that the universities and different sources of talent are producing the talent they need. And you see initiatives fail or struggle to get off the ground when industry is not truly invested. Maybe you have one person from a company, or HR is engaged, but the site manager and the hiring managers aren't engaged. And if it's really going to work well, you need to have all of the right people engaged.
Yeah. Do you think it's hard for them to get to the table, or there's so many folks at the table that it's difficult to kind of be there to express their interest and opinion?
So I think the challenge is workforce and talent development ends up being a passion project a lot of times for people, for certain individuals within the companies, but it's not collective. And so you get one voice, but you don't get all the voices. And so you may have an HR manager or somebody from talent acquisition that's very invested and cares a lot, but they're only one piece of the puzzle. And so they have skin in the game. So does the site manager who runs that plant. So does the hiring manager who's actually looking for those jobs. They all have a different perspective in terms of what's needed and the criticality and the skills and everything else. And unless you have all those voices, it's really hard to understand what to do.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It seems like you're in your role at a really dynamic time as companies are trying to onshore and start new facilities. But you've been doing this for a span of 15 years, I believe, if I have read that correctly. How has workforce development changed? How has it evolved?
When it comes to life science and sort of, biotech workforce development, which is more my world and my wheelhouse, a couple different answers to that. One, there's just simply more people that care about this. I mean, when I started in this kind of world of life science, economic and workforce development and kind of on the education and training space in particular, gosh, however many years, 15, 18 years, it felt like there were a handful of us in the country that cared about this sort of thing. And now it has become, for a good thing, a hotbed. And there are a lot of educators, a lot of companies, a lot of nonprofits that are very invested in making sure that the workforce is there. Part of the challenge with that also is that I think in terms of how it's changing currently is, with the advent of AI and the need for digital skills and all this kind of new stuff, the same educators and the same programs and all the different educational institutions, they're not the only solution anymore. And so it's not a matter of just telling and sharing with them what the industry needs and them adapting their programs. It's totally new types of programs that need to be aware that the industry is there in the first place.
Wow, that's even more dynamic.
Yes. And you mentioned that, AI kind of coming into the conversation too. That it seems like that would maybe confuse it sometimes or give it gives the wrong answer a lot of times. So when you think about kind of work you've done nationally, are there different trends in different areas of the country or differences you can see in workforce development, maybe what the emphasis is depending on the region?
Yeah, I mean, I think, so again, to kind of answer that in a couple different ways, so workforce development is inherently regional. And so what matters to a given region is going to be different depending on what companies are in their backyard and who they're catering to, and how they solve those problems are going to be a little bit different based on the infrastructure that's around. I think part of the challenge, though, right now when I look at things nationally, is the fact that everybody is kind of doing things in silos. I mean, workforce development is hand in hand with economic development. And so, I'm from North Carolina. North Carolina's done a really nice job at winning a lot of the big site selection projects and companies, settling into North Carolina because the workforce is so big. But North Carolina doesn't like to share its secrets with South Carolina and Boston doesn't like to share their secrets with, the Mid-Atlantic and Texas. And everybody's just doing the same things, but everybody's doing it in silos. And so there's a huge opportunity for organizations in different regions to be collaborating across region that they're not. And so.
Yeah, I'll definitely hear a theme of communication.
Yeah.
When it comes to the industry being at the table, and then within the regions, there's a critical need for communication with all the right stakeholders.
And that's just part of my and that's my own lens and my own vantage point, because so much what I care about is sort of collaboration. So.
But I can see where that would be the case, where two states may be competing for a project, and so why would they want to collaborate? Because that might weaken their position against the other one. But at the same time, that could harm us on a national scale.
And at the end of the day, they're building the same solutions. And so I think that's what, and that's one of the things that we see all the time is different states, different regions, different colleges are all building the same exact types of programs to meet the need. But they're all doing it de novo, starting from scratch. And there is so much opportunity that they could jumpstart things if they would think more about how to collaborate pre-competitively. And we're getting there. And I think that's some of what NIIMBL does, is trying to break down those barriers. There's a few things that we do, including a big conference that we run nationally that brings the whole ecosystem together, really with a focus of partnership and trying to break down some of those barriers.
What are some innovative things that you're seeing right now that organizations or companies or regions may be doing?
I largely, I think the way that I'd probably answer that is a slow shift towards what is known out there as sort of skills-first hiring or skills-based hiring. And so it's, our industry, when you look at life sciences and biopharma in particular, has always been very focused on the bachelor's, master's, and PhD route being the only way into the industry. And it has been a very slow change where industry is slowly starting to rethink that and realize they need to broaden their talent pools to a lot, broader realm of candidates. And so it's bringing into the mix new programs from community colleges. It's bringing in the notion of apprenticeships and micro-credentials and short courses and boot camps. And so the regions that are getting ahead of the game, I see that are doing a nice job at working with the employers in that region to kind of open the doors for different candidates.
Mm-hmm. How does a familiarity with AI come into play? I mean, is that something that, familiarity with AI is a very broad term, but some working knowledge of the availability, how to use it, is that part of it now?
From the job seeker standpoint,
yes. Mm-hmm.
I mean, and this is more of a personal thing, I think it's going to be critical. Mm-hmm. And I think there is no way that any employee working in any industry it's not going to be needed that they know how to use and leverage AI effectively. And I mean, so I think without a doubt, whether it's written into a job description or not, it's a useful tool. And most of the companies that I work with, I mean, they have, their AI tools that they can go to, and they are expected and are using them. So I think it's almost become just part and parcel with any job.
Yeah, I agree. Ours too. You know,
Right.
I think it definitely has. How much do policy shakeups or decisions coming down from DC impact? Is it, current projects that causes, shakeups, or without not getting political, but I'm assuming, funding issues, those things will be huge impediments, even for projects that have gotten off their feet a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, every administration has different priorities and different things they care about. I think that really the key, from my perspective, manufacturing and U.S. competitiveness has always been a key priority, regardless of political line and regardless of priority. And so there has always been a lot of interest from the federal government in driving advanced manufacturing agendas. So
That makes sense.
Does your role give you any insight into what people who are possible candidates for employment are desiring these days? Has that changed, or is that pretty consistent for the industry?
From what I see, I still, again, this is a slow change over the last 10 years, and it's probably not anything new. I mean, but it's a slow change back. And so, like, when you look 10 years ago, there was a huge focus on the workforce needing to be inherently very mobile, and you get used to people spending 1 or 2 years at one company and then pivoting and going somewhere else, and kind of they bounce based on where they can go use their skill set. I'm beginning to see, at least anecdotal data, that people are looking to stick around at one employer a little bit longer. And so I'm seeing a lot less job hopping and more people finding their right employer and finding that right culture, and then being willing to stay put, which is kind of refreshing, kind of going back to how things were years ago.
Yes, that's nice to hear.
I like to hear that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Closing thoughts. You've stayed in this area of work for a long time. Why?
Part of me is just driven by collaboration and people, and I like to see the right people come together to solve problems. It's fascinating to me to get to work with a lot of really smart people coming from this problem. I mean, everybody has the same problem, has different skin in the game, and so being able to be right there at the nexus between how educators are approaching this and how the industry is approaching this and how the government at this is just exciting for me. And it's exciting for me to be able to bring the right people together to help solve it.
Well, keep connecting,
yes,
because we need you to do that.
For sure.
Thank you for taking the time, John, to join us today.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Again, that was John Balchunas. He is the Workforce Director for the National Institute for Innovation in Manufacturing Biopharmaceuticals, known as NIIMBL. For those of you who joined us today, we hope you learned a little bit more about the landscape for the industry and workforce development. And on behalf of Lauren and everyone here at the crew, we look forward to seeing you next time right here on Taking the Pulse, a healthcare and life sciences video podcast.